Ever notice how, like, one interview can kind of just flip everything we thought we knew about, you know, past
Oh,
events?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened recently with this really candid talk by Yograj Singh,
Right.
former Indian pace bowler and, of course, father of Yuvraj.
Yeah, yeah.
This was a YouTube interview he did, Unfiltered, by Samdish.
Okay.
It's really got people in the cricket world talking and buzzing about, all these kind of behind the scenes things.
For sure, for sure.
So for this deep dive, we're going to get into some of the big reveals from his interview.
Okay.
And hopefully give everyone a, more complete picture of what was going on,
Yeah.
especially sort of behind the scenes in Indian cricket when he was playing.
Absolutely so much beyond the pitch.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, cool. So probably the biggest thing that people are talking about is his description of this confrontation with Kapil Dev.
Okay, right.
So apparently Yograj was really angry about being dropped from the team. And this was early to mid 80s.
Yeah, a pivotal time for Indian cricket.
Hugely important, yeah.
Right.
And he felt like he never got a clear explanation for why he was dropped.
Okay.
So what's really, kind of striking is how intensely he reacted.
Right.
He claims that fueled by this anger, he went to Kapil Dev's house.
Okay.
In Sector 9 and says that he was armed with a pistol.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, actually intending to confront him. It was really serious.
Yeah, you can really get a sense of how high the stakes were.
Right.
And, the personal investment these players had in their careers.
Right.
It makes you think about how perceived slights could lead to such extreme reactions.
It's a huge claim, for sure.
It is.
And he says that the only reason he didn't end up doing anything violent was because he ran into Kapil Dev's mother, who he describes as pious.
Okay.
It's a pretty powerful turning point in the story he's telling.
Right.
And of course, this whole incident has been reported by tons of news sources.
It is everywhere.
Even if it was, just a threat.
Right.
This whole thing just speaks volumes about the pressure these players were under.
Yeah.
And maybe the fact that there weren't great ways for them to, air their grievances.
Right, or channels to process these issues in a healthier way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then he goes on to make some pretty serious accusations against Bishan Singh Bedi, who was a major figure.
Yeah, a huge influence as a former chief selector.
Right.
Yeah.
And Yograj actually claims that Bedi was actively working to keep him off the team. And, these allegations, if they're true, they point to potentially some systemic problems.
Oh, absolutely.
And how the team was selected.
Right.
Where it wasn't just about how good you were at cricket.
Yeah, other factors were at play.
Exactly. And that could really impact people's careers.
Of course.
And, create this long-lasting bitterness.
Yeah. It's understandable.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reasons he gives for this whole conspiracy theory are pretty specific. He says it was because of his connection to Sunil Gavaskar and his ties to Mumbai cricket.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And he's really clear about the fact that he's never forgiven Bedi.
Wow.
And this, too, has been all over the news,
Yeah, I've seen it.
So it really shows just how much these perceived injustices have stayed with him.
Yeah, absolutely. This feeling that he was wronged.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like this, this sense of being treated unfairly kind of fueled all these other grievances.
Yeah, you can see how one thing might lead to another.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's shift gears a bit to the 2011 World Cup.
Right.
Obviously a huge moment for India.
Oh, yeah. A proud moment for Indian cricket.
For sure.
And, of course, Yuvraj Singh played a key role in that.
Exactly, yeah, his son.
Right.
And here's where things get kind of interesting, because he talks about sending Kapil Dev a newspaper clipping that was celebrating Yuvraj's achievements.
Interesting. So kind of like a look at what you missed out on.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a pointed gesture, right?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe way of saying, hey, this is what I could have achieved.
Right.
And look at my son succeeding on this global stage.
Exactly, yeah. So it definitely suggests there are still, some unresolved issues there.
Yeah, definitely.
Even with, his son's success.
Right.
He does mention getting a WhatsApp from Kapil, saying that he wants to reconcile.
Okay, so there's a desire there to maybe mend things?
Yeah, maybe. But then Yograj just straight up says he still feels vengeance.
Oh, wow.
It's raw.
It is.
It's human.
Yeah.
And it shows just how deep those past experiences have affected him.
Right. Some wounds just run deep.
Yeah, and this part of the interview also got a ton of media attention.
understandably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, though,
With the
because despite all these negative things he talks about,
right.
his perspective kind of shifts when he starts talking about figures from like a later generation.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So who's he talking about?
Well, he's got a lot of praise for MS Dhoni, which is a big contrast to all the criticism of, these other guys.
Right, totally different tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, Dhoni was the captain who led India to a bunch of victories.
Oh, yeah, including that 2011 World Cup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Yograj was specifically impressed by Dhoni's fearless approach
Oh,
and his ability to, like, really read the game.
right.
He even tells the story about Dhoni getting hit by a bouncer from Mitchell Johnson.
Ouch.
Yeah, and then just, like, hitting a six right after.
Oh, wow.
Which perfectly illustrates, that fearlessness.
Yeah, for sure.
And he says this great quote in Hindi,
Okay.
"Aaj log kafi kam hote hai,"
Which means
which means there are very few people like him.
powerful stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So even this, positive stuff got picked up by the media a lot.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a stark contrast to everything else he's saying.
Right.
Yeah.
So, looking at the whole interview, it gives you such a personal look into the, challenges and controversies
Yeah.
that are happening behind the scenes in Indian cricket during his time.
Right, and the kind of intensity of the feelings involved.
Yeah, exactly. Like you really get a sense of the off-field tensions and how
Yeah.
powerful these personal feelings were.
Sure. And how they could really shape a player's whole journey.
Right. And, you see this mix of anger and accusations and lingering resentment,
Yeah.
but also like genuine admiration.
It's complicated.
It is. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, what do you think all of this tells us about the pressures and rivalries that can exist?
Oh, that's a great question.
Even at like the highest levels of team sports?
Yeah.
And how these dynamics might continue to impact athletes long after they've stopped playing.
It really makes you think.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think this interview gives us a lot to ponder.
It really does.
Yeah, a lot to ponder.
Okay, well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah, I think this was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, talk to you soon.
See ya.